What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of AATBirds Weekly Report. A little bit later than our normally scheduled time, but we are here. We're going to talk some birds. Training camp is only a week, well, less than a week away. They report on the 26th, so less than a week away. We got a lot to talk about. So I'm joined by my one and only Mike Bauer. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
Not too bad. Ready to talk some birds. Get into a little bit with training camp coming up.
Yeah, me too.
So the one thing I want to start off with, we'll kind of get this out of the way before we start talking into training camp. So the title of the show is Jessie Bates to Philly ? So there's been a lot of chatter. He doesn't want to play on the franchise tag. So you have that. Now, unfortunately, that's all he can play on right now, depending, just because the deadline to sign an extension has ran out. So he can only play on that. I believe it's like $12.9 million is his franchise.
It's got to be rough, man.
Yeah, exactly right. But
your prayers up for Jessie Bates.
I don't know how he's going to be able to eat
here.
But the reason I bring it up is we've talked about safety position. I know CBS Sports put out the top 10 teams, and they kind of, the guy whoever put it together for who he thinks basically can land him or whatever. And he had the Eagles number one. So of course, I think my opinion on it, he did it to spark conversation, because anytime you put the Eagles top 1, 2, or 3, it's going to spark a lot of conversation around social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So, which it did. And with that, I want to hear your thoughts on it. The Bengals don't trade players, disgruntled players. They don't do that. They've never done that, all the way back to Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer had to retire to get basically his way and get out and go to Oakland before he ended up in Arizona. So I don't see Jessie Bates doing that, but what are your thoughts on Jessie Bates?
I don't know how it's going to happen. They have $9 million in cap space.
Gators checking in.
How you doing? According to Over the Cap, and that is less than $12.5 million last I checked. So they'd have to make some things work. Yeah, I don't get this. If you're the Bengals, you would want to re-sign a key piece to a defense that just took you to a Super Bowl. They almost won. They could have won that game. Don't you want to get better instead of worse?
And it's not like he's 28, 29 years old. He's 25 years old, I believe. So
yeah,
he's in the prime of his career. So it's not like it's this, hey, he hit his peak. He's starting to, hit that late 20s, early 30s. It's not like that. So for me, it's, the talk always comes about, what are you going to trade for? What do you have to give up to get a player of this caliber? Because if you were to trade for him, you're not able to sign him to an extension until after the season. So he plays on that 1 year, and that's all he plays on. And you got to give up assets for him.
It's a big risk. They've done it before. Guys like Dante Stallworth, I think they traded for, did they not?
They did trade for Dante Stallworth.
And then he never played here again. So it's a super, super high risk. This could end up being a high risk, low reward situation where, let's say they give up a bunch of assets. He comes in, he hurts himself game one.
Mm-hmm.
He could actually never really play for this team if you think about it. So I would have felt more comfortable with this had they traded for him previously and then maybe did a sign an extension or trade an extension. But yeah, what are you going to give up for the guy? Does he want to play here?
Yeah, that's the big thing, is basically what you have to give up. And I know people threw out Andre Dillard and Rager and all this stuff, but I don't see doing something like that.
But does anybody want Jalen Rager? Are you gonna trade away?
Now, I don't think so.
Are you gonna trade away one of the better safeties in the league for Jalen Rager? It has to be a move for them to make sense. They don't need Jalen Rager in Cincinnati. You have T. Higgins. You have
you're right.
Jamar Chase. You have Tyler Boyd. It's a really good starting through right there. Who's he going to replace? Auden Tate? Like, I don't. It doesn't make any sense. Or I think Auden Tate's actually in Atlanta now, if I remember correctly. But still, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe they need the tackle help, but didn't they bolster their line a little bit? I don't know. I don't follow the Bengals all that closely, aside from their fantasy assets.
They did bolster the line. They went out.
Right.
They got Lyle Collins, right there, bolster the line there. They got I think they got a player from Tampa. If I let me go up and bring up their depth chart real quick. But no, they went and they addressed the needs that they need to on the offensive line because that was so talked about, and they were able to do that. But then, like you said, this is a franchise type of player that is young, and you can have him here for years. Alex Kappa, that's the name. And also they got Ted Karras from New England. So they did upgrade their offensive line with 3 key players on the right side there, center, right guard, and right tackle. So they did go ahead and do that, and they were able to
looking at it
attack
here.
the need.
I don't know. Sorry, I keep talking over you, but I don't
No,
know
go
who
ahead.
they would trade. I'm just looking at it like I don't know who they could trade to Cincinnati that would make sense. I don't see any players. The only thing I could see is future draft compensation. But you need to hang on to those picks in case you find out this year that Jalen Hurts is not the guy. You want as much draft capital going in, be it you move for a different quarterback or you draft one. So I don't know if this trade really makes sense, to be honest with you. Would I love to see it happen? Yeah. But I'm just looking at the roster and I don't see any spots that the Cincinnati Bengals need that we have that we're willing to give up. What are you going to do? You going to trade Fletcher Cox or Javon Hargraves for this guy? Like,
Well, there was a I'm not going to name any names, but a radio host that likes to stir the pot did mention about adding a Javon Hargrave in a draft selection for Jesse Bates because Hargrave's cap number is 12 million or so.
got a
But
huge hole then to fill.
exactly, you trade Javon Hargrave 4.8 million in dead money, 13 million cap saving. So basically, it's just 1-for-1 swap there, basically with money because. Yeah, for me, it's okay, whatever. I think that's a little stirring the pot because I feel you want to clear up some. I mean, you mentioned $9.1 million. They can get more money if they sign Javon Hargrave to an extension. They are able to clear up about, I think, almost $9 million there. So there's ways for them to kind of get around that. But
well,
again,
here's something frustrating there. Just so you know, I'm looking at dead money that they have to pay out this year. They owe Fletcher Cox 12.8 mil. They're paying $9 million this year to Malik Jackson.
Yeah.
5.9 million to Brandon Brooks, which I'm okay with paying him that. The dude did a lot here. Alshon Jeffrey gets 5.4 million. Joe Flacco gets almost $2 million in dead money. Eric Wilson, $1.3 million. Ryan Kerrigan, $1.14 million.
I know you love that.
My God. So, here's the thing. Everybody thinks that Howie Roseman is a genius, but there's some big dead money that this team is paying out this year. I actually thought that some of Carson Wentz's dead money went into this season.
Nope.
But it looks like it was all last year. So they total $55.22 million in dead cap money this year.
Absolutely crazy.
So yuck. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too. What if they're like, well, we'll give you this guy, but what do you feel about Darius Slay?
In terms of them taking them, you're talking about.
Like if they're like, oh, we could have, I mean, I don't know what their cornerback situation's like. I just don't think it makes sense player wise. It's got to be all draft capital. They're set at quarterback, they're set at running back, they're set at wide receiver.
Yeah.
They did just sign Hayden Hurst, but we're not going to trade Dallas Goedert anyway.
No.
I don't see it happening, to be honest with you. And didn't they just sign that Lewinsky or
Lewinsky Tart they signed?
Yeah. He's a safety,
But,
right?
Yeah. The other thing with it is
he's 30,
I don't know.
So he's not dead yet.
Yeah, and Anthony Harris signed a 1-year deal. They can get out of that contract. There's not a lot of guaranteed money. You can actually get some cap savings by releasing him, but I'm not saying they're gonna do that. But if he's available and he's willing, to come here and you're able to not give up that much, I would think about it. I absolutely would think about it. That would bolster your secondary, having, a player his caliber, going with, a player to me who's on the rise, Marcus Epps. I mentioned him last year. I've mentioned him multiple times. I think you're in a little bit of agreement with me that, he played a lot better from,
Yeah.
his 2020 season to his 2021 season. He got progressively better. So, and he's not old. He's young too. I believe he's 25, 26 years old as well. So
Let's see where Epps is.
he's not an old player. So another guy that you can build with in the secondary with this defense. So
Yeah, he's 26.
26. Okay. So yeah, he's not in the late 20s, he's not in his 30s. So to me, it's just something that keep an eye on because there's chatter. But what's going to ultimately happen is, what is he going to do? Because I don't see a situation. I talked to somebody and they don't think a situation along the lines of what Josh Norman and the Carolina Panthers had happen. Actually, the Eagles did it too with Jeremiah Trotter back in 2002, where they take the tag off of the player.
Should have never done that.
Yeah, I know. I agree. Take the tag off of the player and they become an unrestricted free agent. I just don't see Cincinnati doing that, because then they lose everything and they don't get any compensation. He signed somewhere else, can sign for as much as he wants, many years as he wants, and they don't get anything. They get nothing for him. So that's
one thing to think about too. There's always that surprise cut in training camps.
Yeah,
we
may bring up a surprise Eagle. We may think.
I mean, look, Bradbury got cut.
Yeah,
and he ended up here. So we could have something similar. I'm not saying it's going to be Bates, but worst case scenario, if we go into the season with Harris and Epps, I mean, it's not great, but hey, who knows? Maybe Kayvon Wallace actually shows whether he could play or not.
Yeah,
and we all had high hopes for Kayvon Wallace.
I think a lot of it, a lot of the spark of the conversation when the Eagles they released Craig James, a friend of the show. So he did actually sign with the Jets, so he did bounce right back on another roster, which is great to see. But they release him, and then now their roster is one spot short, and then you hear all this Jesse Bates talking. I mean, so I think that a lot of that kind of lined up with all the chatter and all the talk, and then the CBS thing comes out with him being in the top of the list. They have the Eagles as the fit up there.
This is that time of the year where
we're looking for something to talk about, right?
The general manager takes a dump and they're like, well, that means this. And it's like, all right, guys, let's calm it down a little bit. Let's wait and see what happens here. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But what we are here tonight for is training camp preview. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we're looking forward to. Now, unfortunately, training camp is not at Lehigh, which was great when it was back in the day. But training camp's 6 days away. They report, and I think practice start a week. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. You're going to hear all the notes. You're going to see everything. And what are you most looking forward to? In terms of you can even say training camp and the scrimmages, because they have a couple scrimmages as well. So.
First of all, training camp not being at Lehigh, yet another thing that Chip Kelly ruined for us.
That is true.
Thanks a lot, Dick. But I'm looking at it, and you had brought this up that this was the topic. I'm like, you're talking training camp battles. This is the first time in a long time where I feel like the roster is pretty set. There's not a lot of big question marks, like who's going to play here, who's going to play there. Mm-hmm. So I just brought up the depth chart. We know right now what the safeties look like. We were talking about that. There's still some questions that I think my only questions really are, is TJ Edwards going to beat out Nakobe Dean for the starting middle linebacker spot? Right now, he has the edge. He's the vet.
Yeah.
I'm curious how the defensive line is going to look as far as what ends are starting. Or is that going to be a week-by-week thing? Is it Josh Sweat? Is it Derek Barnett? Is it Brandon Graham? Do they sprinkle some Milton Williams in there? I guess my only big glaring question is, who is the starting right guard?
That's really a good question.
Really the only question I have. And what do our backup receivers look like? We know who the big three is: A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Quez Watkins. It's what they do after that. Yeah. But
I think
that's
you got to
really
throw
it.
Pascal in there too.
Yeah, Pascal's going to play. He's not going to just be warming the bench. Another question I have is, are they going to keep trying to shove Jalen Rager down our throats again?
Well, he may be the punt returner,
Um, let's
but
see. He is the punt returner.
yeah.
There
See,
you go. Rager
but
gets the
again, one of our sleepers may be a player that may unseat him at the return specialist category. But it's just I, I don't know. Gator has a question here. Do you think it'll benefit Dean to sit and not start right away? To me, I think TJ Edwards wins the job ultimately to come out of camp into the
I
start of the
think so.
season. And I think I won't say his reps go down, but I think Dean starts to kind of move up a little bit. And then by mid-season, I feel Dean's going to get a lot of play, just, learning everything like that.
We still also don't know what this defense is going to look like.
We don't. And that's another thing that's, we want to, that's why we want training camp to happen. We want to know what this defense is going to look like. We want to know what kind of schemes they're going to run, what kind of fronts they're going to run, what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's going to help us because, I was looking at the roster, and one concern that I do have is what happens if a Derek Barnett or a Brandon Graham gets hurt. Say Brandon Graham gets hurt again, he's not the same player. And it's just, if you look at the defensive ends, I know they got Hassan Reddick, Teron Jackson. We don't really know who he is. What do they do? Is Milton Williams going to get a lot more play on the outside, defensive end?
I mean, I like Milton Williams, but I feel like they like to move him around so much.
Yeah.
And make him a chess piece all over the place instead of just saying you play here. I feel like maybe this year we are going to see the multiple fronts that we were promised last year that we saw in training camp, but we never saw that. I was thinking about it too. We had 29 sacks last year, something like that, among the lowest in the NFL. Do you remember Gannon saying, it's not just about sacks, it's about pressure?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? Then tell me why there weren't more 3-and-outs. Tell me why there weren't more turnovers, because pressure creates those things. Tell me why Justin Herbert was completing 80% of his passes against us. So now Gannon has another year installing his scheme and his system. He's got some of his guys in here. I want to see what this defense looks like. I mean, I know everybody is really focused on, got A.J. Brown, another year, Jalen Hurts developing. For me, I want to see what the defense looks like, because even last year with much worse wide receiver play and a younger quarterback, this was still a competitive team. They could have won more games. They hung in there, but the defense failed them a lot, especially in the playoffs.
No, you're right. And I think that's one of the biggest question marks because, with the offense getting A.J. Brown, hopefully Miles Sanders takes that next step. Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, Devontae Smith, Jalen Rager. To me, it's just the offense. We kind of have an idea of what they're going to be doing. I know they want to throw a little bit more with A.J. Brown and everything. And we kind of have an idea, though. The defense, adding in all these pieces, these new players, to me, that's the biggest thing, what we want to see, because we need to know. We want to know what they're going to be able to do on that side of the ball, because Gannon's was talked so highly before he was hired, or when he was hired going into last season. And we want to see an explosive defense. We want to see a defense that we're used to. I guess you can say that. To me, it's looking at this, one thing that I'm, comfortable with, and I can't really say that years prior, would be the secondary, especially the corners.
Yeah.
When you could put Bradbury, Slay, and Devontae Maddox as your top three guys, it's and that's great, because now the cornerback 4, 5, however many cornerbacks, if you keep 6, whatever that may be, these younger guys don't have to be pressured in to play meaningful snaps like a Michael Jacquet had to, like these other guys, Chandon Sullivan when he was here, and Trey Sullivan at safety, and all these other guys that had to be thrust into action and play when they really weren't ready. You hopefully aren't going to have to see that. They can kind of sit on the sideline. They can learn. They can, mold their game, get better. That's one thing that I'm comfortable. And I haven't said that in probably since, I can't even say, well, I guess when they got Darby and they had Darby and Mills, I guess I was somewhat comfortable because they still had Malcolm and Rodney. So I'd probably
Yeah,
say back.
were we? Because if I remember correctly,
I
Jalen
like
Mills
Jalen Mills. So for me, I probably was
he
more comfortable than you were.
wasn't supposed to start. I had reservations, 7th-round pick. You know what I mean? I forget
Patrick
who was
Robinson
supposed.
was supposed to start on the outside, but he was
Yeah,
bad in training camp and almost got cut, and they moved him to the inside.
good thing he didn't, though. I could tell you that.
Yes.
Um, but if I remember correctly, Ronald Darby did not start the season. He didn't play till later on. He got hurt.
He got hurt, I think, the first game against Washington, dislocated his elbow or something along the lines of that.
So,
And then he
yeah.
was out for a good chunk of the season.
But yeah, it's nice to feel good about the secondary. It's nice to feel good about the wide receivers for once too. Like, when was the last time we could say,
You're
man,
right.
we have an elite group of wide
Hey.
receivers here?
And linebackers. We've talked about it.
The thing is, this team is really built like a typical Philadelphia Eagles team, though, from the trenches out. Like,
Oh, no
both
doubt.
lines are solid. There's question marks at the defensive tackle position, defensive end.
Mhm.
We still think they're going to be solid. The only big glaring position, though, is that right guard. Right now, Isaac Seumalo is penciled in as a starter, and I think it's his job to lose. But
I agree too. But
it could be Driscoll. I like Driscoll.
I do too. And the thing with Driscoll is if he beats out Seumalo, I'll save that. Well, let's get into a couple of things because this is going to lead into my point. So I'm going to say it now, and then I'll have yours. A surprise player that could be cut / traded. I'm going to go with Seumalo here because if he loses that right guard job, I don't think that they're going to be keeping a guy along the lines making $5 million as a backup when they could get rid of him, trade him, or cut him and save themselves, a good chunk of money to put towards the cap to probably roll over into next year. So for me, that would be a player that I could see them getting rid of if he doesn't get that right guard starting spot.
For me, it wouldn't be a surprise trade, but it would be a surprise cut if it was Andre Dillard.
Ooh, interesting.
They might decide that the cap hits just too much. I don't know what his dead cap would be if they cut him. I'd have to look into that. But I mean, they've tried to trade the guy, all last season. We all thought it was going to happen draft day or draft weekend, and it didn't. So he's still here. And I got to be honest with you, Jack Driscoll, we talked about him a little bit ago. He's a guy that could play pretty much every position on the offensive line. I feel just as confident with him at left tackle that I do as Andre Dillard. And Jack Driscoll is cheaper and he's much more versatile. Now, I'm not saying he's better, but he is more versatile. And when it comes to your swing backups, you need versatility. They do also have LaRaven Clark, who's played tackle in the league. It's cheaper. I think he's a little bit older, but still.
But he could play right or left tackle, or he can even play guard if need be, but he's your swing tackle.
So wouldn't you rather have LaRaven Clark than Andre Dillard? Because theoretically, so right now, Andre Dillard is the backup left tackle, and Jack Driscoll is the backup right tackle. That's the way that they have it listed.
Yeah. You
could have LaRaven Clark in both of those tackle positions, and theoretically, Jack Driscoll could be your backup for either guard spot. Yeah. Or he played center. Well, he's not going to be the backup center. That's going to be Cam Jurgens.
Yeah.
But I think, didn't he play center? Was it the last game of the year? Was that him or was that
Jack Anderson?
Jack Anderson. My bad.
I think he got hurt last year at the end of the last game because they like him a lot. And, you bring it up, Dillard also to keep an eye on is other teams around the league. If they lose a starting a right tackle, I guess Dillard can try and play that again. But a starting offensive tackle, if somebody loses one of their starting offensive tackles, don't be surprised if they give the Eagles the call for Dillard and possibly be able to rid him that way and trade him and maybe recoup a mid-round pick.
But why? Jason Peters is in shape.
Oh God.
He's ready to go. Hey, you're the
See,
one.
I kind of set you up for that. No, I do not want any parts of Jason Peters here. I'm sorry. I loved what he did here.
Yes.
He's an Eagles Hall of Famer. He's an NFL Hall of Famer. He was tremendous in his years in
Right
Philadelphia.
off into the sunset, JP.
But yes,
Enjoy retirement.
yes, there's no more time here, unfortunately, unless you want to come back and be a coach when you retire. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but no. But you look at the other players on this depth chart for the offensive line, and you have Cam Jurgens at backup center. You have Jack Driscoll. We talked about LaRaven Clark. And then after that, you have Jack Anderson, Sua Opeta, who's still here.
They like him.
I do too. Coyote Awasika, who they like a lot. Undrafted free agent out of Buffalo last year. And they have a couple undrafted guys. Josh Sills, they gave a lot of money to. Brett Toth, I know he tore his ACL at the end of the Dallas game. I believe him and Jack Anderson both got hurt in that game. So they'll probably start the season on the PUP list most likely. But, the offensive line isn't super, super deep, but I think it has enough depth that they're not, someone goes down, they should be able to be okay with the players that they have. But
it stings missing Herbig a little bit.
It does. It does. Don't. I agree with you
some
there.
Good football here, to be honest with you. But hey, look, he's got it. I think he signed with the Jets. Did he not?
I believe so. Yeah.
What's up, Adam?
How you doing, Adam?
Does he have a chance to earn a starting job there? Do you know?
Let me take a look, because I know the Jets did get rid of a couple guys on the offensive line, or not resign.
In my opinion, if you're making a little less, but you got a chance to start, maybe you get some more bonuses and all that good stuff. Then you
looks
go.
Like the Jets have now Mekhi Becton at right tackle. Who knows the situation there? I know he gained a lot of weight.
He's not going to beat out Mekhi Becton. I can tell you that.
No. At right tackle, no. But Elijah Vera Tucker's the right guard. Lakin Tomlinson, who they signed from San Francisco, is the left guard. He's the backup guard. So he has the backup position there. But yeah, it was sad to see him go. But maybe the Eagles think that the players like the Josh Sills, the Coyote Awasikas, Sua Opetas, Jack Andersons, those guys can fill in and play admirable and play the same level as Nate Herbig did. So, and cost a lot less, cost about $1.6 million less. So
I could see Sua Opeta being that guy.
Yeah, he's been in the system for a number of years, so it's not like he's new here. He's been in some games.
2019.
Yeah, and he's played how many games?
That it does not say. I'm on our lads, and it just says activated, but activated that doesn't mean that he played. I can look up here. Sua Opeta has played. He has started 4 games for the Eagles, 2 in 20 and 2 last year.
So yeah,
I'm assuming one of those was the Dallas game at the end of the year.
A little bit of runtime. Going into talking about training camp and everything, some sleepers. Who do you can name one, a couple guys. I have a couple guys in my head. We'll go back and forth. Who do you feel as, one sleeper that you're, you want to watch? You want to see maybe carves out a role in this roster?
All right. So look, this is going to not sound like a sleeper. Okay. But you guys
Dallas Goedert. No, I'm kidding.
When he's in the Hall of Fame, I'll put him on my list.
If he gets in the Hall of Fame, we're going to have a show. Just, Chip will be it'll be like a roast. There we go. A roast.
So you guys know that I do a lot of fantasy football stuff, and everybody is really, really down on Miles Sanders right now. And I know it sounds stupid to have him as a sleeper. And I'm not just saying for fantasy purposes either. I think Miles Sanders is going to have a fantastic season. The guy averages over 5 yards a carry for his career, which is fantastic. Let's look at the depth chart behind Miles Sanders. Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell is a fine player. He's not a starting running back in the NFL. Boston Scott, same thing. I love Boston Scott. Not a starter. Jason Huntley, and then they signed Kennedy Brooks. He's a strong running back. Reminds me a little bit of Jordan Howard in the way he runs, but really there's no competition here. And I think people are just overlooking Miles Sanders. You know what I mean? I know it sounds like a stupid thing to have a
think you're
sleeper.
right.
Don't sleep on Miles, man. Like, has he gotten hurt? Yeah, he's a running back. That's what they do. Running backs get hurt. They take a beating. I think he's gonna have a fantastic year. I think he runs for over 1,000 yards. I don't think they're gonna run like they did last year, but I think it's still going to be, it's not going to be like a 70-30 split like that. But
And Adam, I think what we're really looking forward to is football kind of coming back into our lives. I think that's
I want to see the defense.
yeah.
I really want to see the defense. That's my biggest question mark.
Yeah, we talked about that. Looking at defensive side of the ball, you talked about Miles Sanders as your sleeper. A player that I'm going to say is going to be a sleeper here, and I'm going to say it only because I think he's not going to be thrown into it like I just said. But Tay Gowan,
You like Tay Gowan.
I do like Tay Gowan.
You've liked Tay Gowan since the day they got him in that trade.
Exactly.
You were like the only person excited. You're like, yes, we got Tay Gowan.
I liked him in college, and he sat out for a COVID year, and then was drafted late and didn't really catch on. And I like his length. I just think that him being able to sit behind guys like Bradbury and Darius Slay, and to be able to learn behind those guys, I feel like it's beneficial for him. And also, if he winds up showing out and being a quality player and a good player, then it's another thing that I can roast Chip on, because he hated that trade because he hated getting rid of Zach Ertz. So it's another feather in the cap, hopefully. Probably not, because all the players who are on like the bottom end usually don't pan out that I like. But again, I can keep throwing darts at the dartboard. Hopefully one sticks. But I like Tay Gowan. I feel like he's a player that is still young, developing, a developmental prospect. I think I want to see a lot of him come this, and you're going to see a lot come the preseason and everything. So again, that's another reason I like preseason games, is because I like seeing these guys get some opportunity to play. It may be boring to some, but
I love them. I love preseason games, man. They're almost as fun as regular season games for me, just because you get to see the guys that you don't normally get to see. Here's another one. He was playing well last year before he got hurt. That's Davion Taylor. Right now, he's slotted to be the backup weak side linebacker. Kaiser White is only on a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if Kaiser White is a surprise cut? We've seen guys not really acclimate well to a new system. It could happen. Do I want to see it happen? No, he's a local guy, more local to you than me. But Davion Taylor was a 3rd-round draft pick. I know they don't want to just give up on the guy. And I like Davion Taylor. He's fast. Remember 2020 when he chased down Lamar Jackson?
Yes.
Everyone's like, oh, it's not that impressive. No. Well, then you know what? You go chase down Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Let's see you do it, because I can't. I'm not going to run down Lamar Jackson. I thought, he came up to the line, he stopped, and he had to shift and run. He's a fast dude.
Exactly. And again, like I said with the corners, he's not going to be thrust into. I like that word, thrust. You use that a little too much today. He's going to be thrown into the action right away, and I don't think you're going to have that. He's going to be able to, because when he came out of Colorado, of course, we've talked about it. He was overdrafted. And he gets time to sit behind these other, Kaiser White's there, TJ Edwards, Nakobe Dean, the young, should have been 1st-round draft pick, but wasn't. He's there too. So you're looking at this depth chart, and he's not a guy that you're going to be focused on. He needs to perform, needs to be this really, really talented, really good linebacker right away, and you go. And you're going to be able to see him kind of learn still, and still because he was hurt last year. Unfortunately, that's the one thing with him, is hopefully he can stay healthy, and that's big for him. Yeah. And another guy that I have I kind of have two guys on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm gonna go with this guy is Kyron Johnson. I want to see what he brings to this defense, because if he's in the mold of kind of what they're going to be doing with Hassan Reddick, watch him at the Senior Bowl. I like what he does. I like his motor. He's absolutely quick, and just, I don't know, just watching him, it just has so much energy, and I just feel like he fits.
I did too. They got him late.
They did, out of Kansas. They got him really late. I think the sixth round draft selection. Yeah, 6th round.
Yeah, like that's where you take chances on guys like this. Like you take chances on guys like this, on a Quez Watkins type guy. And you know what? If they work out, you got to steal. If not, oh well, it was a 6th
Jordan
round.
Mailata, Jalen Mills, the 7th round guys.
Jordan Mailata was probably one of the best 7th round draft picks of all time.
That draft
for this
was one of the best drafts. That we'll see in time, a couple years down the road. But that draft is almost like back in 2002 when they went Lito Shepherd, Michael Lewis, Sheldon Brown, Brian Westbrook.
You know what? Michael Lewis was a guy that was always overlooked because playing in a secondary with Shepherd, Brown, Dawkins, he was just like remember when those 3 guys made the Pro Bowl the one year and Michael Lewis didn't, and he shouldn't have, or he should have. Michael Lewis was a really, really solid football player. He played well for the 49ers too. I believe that's where he went after.
That's where he went after, because then I believe Quentin Michael was the starting safety.
Which Quentin Michael, another
undrafted free agent out of Boise State.
Solid player. Like just nothing flashy, but just a good instinctive player. He could hit too. Quentin Michael could hit.
A couple of things that we've talked about. You look at the roster and people complain about the roster. Not every single player is going to be a superstar. It does not happen.
It's not how it works.
And I think it's come up last year and everything because of, we're talking about Marcus Epps and people saying Marcus Epps isn't that good, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, if a player plays their role to what they need to do and to do it the best of their ability and to be able to be a successful player, they don't have to be an all-pro or a Pro Bowler. They can still be a successful player and be able to, make an impact. And that's huge. And Peanut has a question here.
Hi, Peanut.
Good old Peanut. Who takes the biggest step backwards this year? This is a good question. This one's got you a little stumped, does it?
Is that question because of scheme changes, or is that question because of, we could see, are we talking about from a skill wise? Because we could honestly say if it's just depreciating skills, it could be Fletcher Cox. If we're talking about a lack of opportunity because of other pieces getting better around him, it could be Devonta Smith because AJ Brown is there. So that's really hard to say. We obviously hope the answer is nobody.
Yeah.
So we got to think about it too. Darius Slay's getting older as well. He's another candidate for a guy that could take a step backwards. But the good thing is a step backwards Darius Slay is still better than a lot of the other cornerbacks out there. So that's one thing to consider.
Yeah, I don't know, step backward. Unfortunately, the name that popped into my head, maybe it's another step backwards, is Anthony Harris.
You know what? I want to give Anthony Harris the benefit of the doubt. Anthony Harris was banged up a lot last year. He's a solid enough player. And let's not forget, everybody's so fixated on starting. Starting means you're out there for the first play of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could start the game and play one snap.
But do you think having Jaquiski Tart there to kind of maybe spell a little bit and to be able to kind of split that up, because that may help him and he doesn't take a step backwards. Hopefully he doesn't. Hopefully I'm wrong. And you want to see these guys excel and succeed, because this is our team. So we want to be able to see them fulfill their highest level and to be able to compete. But another guy that,
well, just before you move on, I understand people were really mad when they re-signed Anthony Harris. Did you want him to bring Rodney McLeod back? You know what I mean?
I think a year older, I believe.
At least Anthony Harris still has his legs.
Yeah.
McLeod had a bunch of ACL tears. You know what I mean? Like Harris had those thumb injuries, and I think he had something else going on, but he still got his legs, and that's really important.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he had those 2 casts. So,
Yeah. I
sorry,
remember.
you were gonna say?
No, but a player that I think is gonna, I wouldn't say surprise, but like someone that's gonna maybe live up a little bit to the potential we thought is Derek Barnett. I know he gets a bad rap, but
Year 6 breakout coming up.
yeah, hey, last year I was right. I said Greg Ward was gonna have more touchdowns than Jalen Rager.
I mean, let's be
Maybe
real.
maybe
That didn't
Derek
take
Barnett
much.
has more sacks than Brandon Graham. I don't know, but
It's possible. I mean, look, I know Brandon Graham's a high motor guy.
he
Everybody
looks
loves
good though
him.
in videos he's posting and stuff of his rehab. He looks, for someone coming back from at
Yeah,
the age he's at, coming back, it's great to see. I love his energy. Um, he's really overcome so much in this city. Everyone
yes,
thinking he was a bust, and then coming out making one of the biggest plays in the Super Bowl, and being a part of that team, being a part of this city, and he's Eagles lore. He's an Eagles Hall of Famer, no
for
doubt.
sure. No, I like Brandon Graham. I don't know. Yeah, that I'll tell you what, that defensive end spot's going to be something. Did he have any sacks last year?
It'll be
Let's
fun.
see. He did not have any sacks last year.
Who's that?
Brandon Graham.
He only played a game and a half
He played. Yeah,
because he got hurt, and I believe wasn't the first half against San Francisco.
I mean,
So
the year before that, he's coming off an 8-sack season.
yeah,
So it's not like
and he's great against the run, and I think they missed that.
for sure. And Derek Barnett had 2 sacks last year. I mean, he started 15 games and he had 2 sacks. Like,
yeah.
maybe Derek Barnett was the guy that already took the step back. Not that he ever took a step forward. His high was 6.5 sacks in 2019.
And if he doesn't play very well this year, he's not going to be back next year because the way his contract is structured. And it's going to be fun. The next couple of weeks, wrapping this up, football's back. And
I missed it.
I know it's fun. It's going to have a lot to talk about. Practice is starting up. There's going to be news. So it's going to be an enjoyable time here at All About the Birds. We're going to be here. We're going to be talking Eagles. Don't miss it. We have a lot of news scheduled to drop. We have some announcements to make. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe. Spotify, Apple, all the podcast platforms. Just make sure you're subscribing and hitting the notification tab just so when we're live, you can tune in. Gonna go down a couple sponsors here before we wrap everything up. Statement Games, fun free twist on fantasy sports. Check the link in the bio. AATSportsNetwork.com/shop. Again, check the link in the bio. Some cool designs on there you want to take a look at. Symbol Stock Market for Sports, symbol.com. Use the promo code AAT Sports when you sign up. Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant, located off the Iroquois Trail in the Old Town Shopping Center in Allentown. Visit them today, www.vinnyspizzapa.com. Tell them we sent you. They got a lot of great specials. Football season's around the corner. They're going to have a lot of football specials, so definitely check them out for all your game day needs. And also, Stuff to the Grill is also located in the Iroquois Trail, the Old Town Shopping Center in Allentown. www.stuffdotogrills.com. They are basically renovated, so they do take some orders and stuff along the lines of that, catering, stuff like that. So, but that should be almost finished up as well. But definitely check them out. A lot of great food. Again, tell them that we sent you. And I will be adding this again, but we are again going to be sponsored by Manscaped. So, AATBirds is the promo code, 20% off and free shipping at checkout. We have a fun commercial that will be airing next week's show, but definitely check that out as well if you want some of your man grooming kits or anything to, shave your bush. But
Do it up, gents. Keep your
do
ladies
it up.
happy.
So anything else?
Go Birds.
And Peanut says, great show. Exactly. The way we end it with a very happy and special and cheerful Go Birds.
Go Birds.